Alright, say it with me folks. If I had a nickel every time an anime came out in 2025 that featured a depressed, mildly suicidal gay high schooler meeting and having dangerous amounts of chemistry with a terrible eldritch hellspawn that might consume them at a moment's notice, I'd have 2 nickels. And a YouTube video. Unfortunately, I had to spend the nickels on this month's energy bill, so all you get is the YouTube video. My apologies. It is kind of funny to think about though. What are the odds of 2 different anime coming out so close to each other that feature protagonists in close contact with a monster that is pretending to be human, could very possibly kill and eat them, and is also really fucking gay? Well, higher than you might think, because cannibalism and sexuality are a combo that a lot of media have played with. B-Stars, Raw, Bones and All, Jennifer's Body, Yellow Jackets, I'm pretty sure Ethel Cain gets eaten at the end of Preacher's Daughter, and that's not even getting into erotic vampirism, which, if you count that as cannibalism, then we could literally be here forever. Good thing we ain't really talking about that right now. If that's the kind of video you're after, then check out Lola Sebastian's video on the topic. It's pretty comprehensive. I'm gonna be focused on 2 specific anime and manga series in this video, those being The Summer Hikaru Died and This Monster Wants to Eat Me. Both very gay, a little spooky, and also interesting looks at the concept of self-destruction, and I'm not just using that as a euphemism for suicide. Firstly, the one you probably came here for. Oh, and obviously spoilers for the aforementioned series. What makes the queer allegories in The Summer Hikaru Died so interesting and honestly refreshing is that they're barely even allegories to begin with. This show is gay, no ifs, no buts about it. It's just that the romantic interest happens to be a codependent eldritch monster that's puppeting the corpse of the main character's best friend and childhood crush. I don't have to say that The Summer Hikaru Died is a metaphor for how alien, uncomfortable and frightening it can be to grow up in an intrusive, conservative and rural area, because The Summer Hikaru Died is about how alien, uncomfortable and frightening it can be to grow up in an intrusive, conservative and rural area. By so blatantly dragging out those kinds of readings, making the queer subtext just text, the series, I find, is able to make far more interesting and compelling commentary than it otherwise would have if it were more coy about it. Specifically, The Summer Hikaru Died captures how frightening it can be to understand what you are as you get older, how that separates you from the rest of your community, and how that changes relationships you once thought frozen. How frightening but alluring it can be to not only invite that change into your life, but allow it to change you in turn, and you can really see this in how Yoshiki and Hikaru's relationship changes and evolves. Initially, Yoshiki tries to pretend that nothing has changed, that everything is normal, that he is just a normal guy going to school with his normal guy friend and hanging out with their other normal friends. Somewhat predictably, this begins to drive him insane. Whether he likes it or not, Hikaru is different. His relationship with him is different, and, by extension, he is now different. And as Yoshiki comes to accept Hikaru not for what he isn't, but what he is, something strange and inhuman, Yoshiki begins to accept what he himself is becoming. Even as the process frightens and disturbs him, even as he tells himself he needs to stop for the good of everyone involved, some part of him that he didn't know or refused to accept existed, keeps dragging him further into whatever Hikaru is. I think the scene that most sums this up is one that actually happens very early on, towards the end of episode 3. By this point, Yoshiki has realised that just playing pretend with the monster controlling his best friend's corpse like a puppet is not healthy at all. So he tries to distance himself from Hikaru, who inevitably comes to him asking, "What's up? Why aren't you talking to me?" Though he tries to lighten the mood, it quickly turns sour as the boys get into an argument and Yoshiki finally admits the source of his discomfort. The whole charade that they've been playing, pretending as if nothing is wrong when everything couldn't be more so. Having to sit with and hang out with this monster pretending it's still his best friend when it so obviously isn't. Realizing this, Hikaru breaks down and we realize that this has been as hard on him as it has Yoshiki. This eldritch, horrifying monster that, until recently, had no concept of emotion, attachment, regret, love, screams out that, although he doesn't know whose emotions are whose anymore, he can't stop himself from loving Yoshiki, before something seems to snap inside of him and the real him comes out. It overwhelms Yoshiki as the entire room, his entire body is covered in Hikaru. He's disgusted, afraid, confused, but then, as Hikaru works his way inside more and more, something changes, and a part of him begins to like it. In a series that basically has a full body handjob in it, this scene of Hikaru nearly consuming Yoshiki is somehow the most erotic in the show for me, and I think it comes down to the simple, raw, overwhelming emotions and vulnerability at play here. Hikaru is just giving all of himself to Yoshiki, figuratively and literally, like he just can't bear to be separate from him. It's overwhelming, and understandably Yoshiki can't help but be frightened at first, but then there's that moment when something switches in his brain and he just lets himself get swept up in it, lets himself get overwhelmed, lets himself drown in Hikaru, and in him he finds ecstasy, joy, belonging. The best, most memorable moments of this anime recapture that same feeling, that sense of knowingly sinking deeper and deeper into a dark, bottomless ocean, the depths of which neither Yoshiki nor Hikaru are sure what holds. And yet they dive anyway, because the most important thing, the only thing that matters anymore, is each other. Before we carry on, allow me to rattle my tin can a little bit. This is the Surface Pro 7 that I have been doing all my work on, editing, composing, recording, for the last 5 years or so. Ignoring how it even lasted that long, after all this time of punching above its weight, the thing is finally at its breaking point and I need something else. Preferably an actual laptop and not a glorified tablet. Unfortunately, I'm not all that liquid right now, so I would very much appreciate your support. If you like what I do and want to help me not only keep at it, but improve at it, then you can donate to either my Ko-fi, my Patreon, or buy my music on Bandcamp. A big thank you to everyone who has donated already. In particular, thank you to my patrons Michael Coolwood, El Bigante, and Fox. You can also help by simply liking, commenting, and sharing my videos. Things have been a bit weird on this platform the past few months, so every little bit helps. Alright, back to where we left things off. This monster wants to eat me by comparison is a less visceral experience, certainly not as melodramatic. However, it does cultivate a tone of its own, one markedly slower and more introspective, which I think is reflective of its more down-tempo protagonist, Hinako, who lost her parents and brother in an accident when she was a child. Forever scarred physically and mentally, she drags herself through life, gripped by a passive suicidal ideation, not strong enough for her to actively want to take her own life, but strong enough for her to constantly yearn for it to end. Enough so that when a beast emerges from the ocean and takes her, she welcomes it. It's a mood I think many can relate to, that passive want to stop existing, that dark, awkward space where life no longer gives you any pleasure, but death still feels like too big of a step to take, at least by yourself. So when it seems like someone else is about to make that step for her, she is relieved. But then she finds herself saved by Shiori, a mermaid who, finding Hinako's taste irresistible, decides to intervene, pledging to keep her alive until she ripens, at which point she will feast on her herself. It just so happens that the ripening process involves being her best friend, making sure she is in good health both physically and mentally, and in general helping her rediscover that love of life. Also, at the moment she is most appreciative of what she has, the moment she no longer wishes to die, Shiori can devour her at her most delicious. As with Hikaru, there's a growing kind of dread that builds the further you read Watanabe, and we will be mostly reading from this point because the anime adaptation of the series is still airing at the point of writing. You see Hinako start to smile more, become more proactive, show her appreciation for her friend, all because of Shiori's influence, because of Shiori pushing her to take better care of herself and remind her of the joy of being alive, and it can't help but feel heartwarming. But then, a little voice in the back of your head reminds you, she's only doing this so that, at the moment Hinako is at her most happy, Shiori can eat her at her most ripe. Watching the two of them interact in this early stage is like watching a farmer lovingly raise a pig, giving it the best life they can so they can eventually slaughter it for its meat. I think the moment that best encapsulates this early feeling, and honestly, one of the few times the manga actually frightened me, is the end of chapter 14. Hinako and Shiori have taken a trip to the sea, where the former does seem to be having a rare moment of fun, which unfortunately dampens when it starts to rain all of a sudden, seemingly triggered by the arrival of spirits lost at sea. The mood is soured even further when Shiori accidentally catches a glimpse of Hinako's extensive, severe scarring, much to her dismay. Hinako apologizes, remarking that she doesn't want Shiori to see her scars lest she have her appetite ruined, but Shiori reassures her that, whether she is beautiful or hideous, the only thing important to her is that Hinako is herself. She then apologizes for their trip going sideways, but then Hinako asks, with a smile, if she'll take her to the beach again in the future. And then, on the next page, I don't know if I'll ever forget the churning in my gut I first felt when reading this chapter. That deafening reminder that each moment of joy brings Hinako closer to her death. I was worried that the series would lose this undercurrent of dread once the true nature of Hinako's accident was revealed and it became clear that Shiori actually has no intention of eating her and instead just wanted to protect her. But I guess not as worried as Hinako herself was, since, upon realizing this, she is so hurt that she tries to cut all ties with her and then attempts suicide by running into the sea, forcing Shiori, in an impulsive act of desperation, to renew the promise to eat her at her peak happiness once again, just to stop her from immediately killing herself. And now the relationship is arguably even more uncomfortable, since it isn't even a dark, romantic, selfish agreement anymore. Shiori doesn't even want this, but will be forced to do so anyway. Even worse though, is that it actually works. With her death seemingly assured, Hinako almost immediately becomes a much more positive person, is extremely forgiving and understanding, and even expresses a wish to change, to become more like her friend Miko, who is revealed to be an ancient fox spirit who may or may not also want to eat her, but managed to move past her base, human hunting instincts to fall in love with them. Which is great, but no, because that's only gonna get you closer to being killed, and it's not like Shiori even wants it, and This new tension is on full display in chapter 41 when Shiori tags along with Hinako on her annual visit to her family grave. Hinako correctly notes that Shiori showing up, praying with her, even wearing a different dress are all done for her benefit. Shiori concurs, but then asks her who she thinks she benefits by visiting the grave every year. After thinking about it, she admits that she does this for herself as well, wanting to believe that, in some way, her family is still here. Shiori says, however, that she can't imagine Hinako being substituted by a simple stone, and that without being able to hear her voice or touch her body, a grave would mean nothing to her, only for Hinako to say that if Shiori eats her, She will become her grave, and even though they won't be able to speak and touch, the two of them will be together forever. To which Shiori can only remark how little she understands things, later commenting on just how cruel Hinako really is. In watching Hikaru and reading Watatabe, I've come to realise that the common thread linking them is change, specifically allowing yourself to be changed by people, including and especially by the people you love, and how both frightening and alluring that process can be. There's a natural discomfort and fear at such a drastic shift, a dread at the thought of just giving yourself, mind, body and soul to another person, allowing them to mould you as they see fit, them allowing you to mould them as you see fit. The scale, the weight of that is overwhelming. But isn't that part of the fun? Part of the relief? To be free of everything you are, to allow your world and someone else's to overlap. Fear and pain are inevitabilities, but the life that could emerge afterwards, the promise of something better than you are now, that's a possibility some are willing to die for.